I have some burning questions from this Celtics offseason. Burning questions. To go through these questions and to figure out how the Celtics are going to come through a massive talent drain this summer, I'm joined by my editor-in-chief over at USA Today Sports Media Group Celtics Wire, Dr. Justin Quinn. What's popping, Justin?
Same stuff, different day here in Mexico City.
It's been a weird summer for the Celtics from the standpoint of a bunch of talents left and not much talent has come back through the front door. And so just to recap, in case anyone has been living under a rock, Kristaps Porziņģis is gone. Al Horford is most likely gone. So that's it, man.
I'm getting really sick of writing Al Horford leaves presumably in some
or most likely. Yeah. It's like with Jayson Tatum. I'm like most of, if not all of, the upcoming season. Al Horford presumably gone. Jrue Holiday gone. Luke Garza gone. In comes Luka Garza, Josh Minott, and Hugo Gonzalez. Those are like your three big pickups of the summer. Am I missing a pickup there? I feel like I'm missing one. I'm not going to count Sugar Raw Williams because they're both on two ways. Am I missing anyone there?
Mr. Boucher, did you say?
Boucher was the one I was missing. I knew there was one. So it's been a huge talent drain. You've gone from having an elite 3-level big man in Porziņģis, an elite, I like to call it positional or angled defender in Al Horford. You've lost probably the biggest advanced stats darling of the last 10 years in Celtics basketball in Luke Garza. And you get back Luka Garza, Josh Minott, and Chris Boucher. I mean, and you lost Jrue Holiday. So it's been a rough few months for the Celtics. From there, though, that's left us with a bunch of questions. First and foremost being the way the Celtics are going to play basketball this season. They cannot line up in a 5-8 because they don't really have the perimeter spacing that they did before. And even if they do, they're not talented enough to get back in transition after a shot's missed and still get stops. So that's kind of going to be where I'm starting here, Justin. You've been covering the Celtics for a lot longer than me, to be quite fair. And you've probably seen more iterations of talent drain than me in terms of since you've been in the media. So from your standpoint, when you're looking at the way this Celtics team is currently constructed, what changes are you expecting in the offensive approach?
Oh boy. I mean, if you thought we were going to see a lot of threes in previous iterations of this team, I think we're going to see more of them. I think we're going to see more transition on offense because if you don't have particularly great options up and down the roster to score, particularly in the second unit, moving fast is probably your next best option. We saw that with theoretically, I don't think we're going to look at them in the near future as such, but at least at the time, we looked at the Indiana Pacers as a not as talented, not a contention level talent team, but the way that they structured their roster with competent, if not star level depth all the way up and down the team. I think that's what they're going to be going for. But the rub right now is just finding those players, right? Which is why we see so many developmentally oriented players on the roster. Not a lot of the players on the roster are going to be able to do that. Like, for example, Luka Garza, very interesting player. He might work as a trailer, but he's not going to be running up and down the court in the same kind of way that like the Indiana Pacers did. So it's going to be a very different looking offense in terms of the particulars. We might see more cutting. I know Mazzulla has not been a big fan of it in the past because it kind of clogs up the spacing, but he's got a different team to work with now. So particularly, again, on the second unit, we might see a lot more cutting, particularly with, say, a Hugo Gonzalez, for example. Other than that, it's going to be messy, very messy, and a lot less pretty than it has been, which is also going to take a little time to get to.
I think for me, the cutting aspect is a really important part to talk about here. Is messing up the spacing was messing up the way the Celtics looked to create space when they were the version of the Celtics to win a championship. There's so many different ways to make space. You can be vertically spaced, you can be laterally spaced, or you can be spaced in terms of 3-point line. This team feels like it's going to be more looking for vertical space, and they're going to want lob threats. They're going to look for athleticism, and that's where that cutting could come into play. I think Neemi's going to get a large amount of his offense on I'm going to throw it up and you go and get that shit. I think that Josh Minott could be a guy that stands out there. Jordan Walsh showed quite a bit of athleticism this summer. I'm very low on Jordan Walsh compared to most. but I feel like he really understood the assignment of out in
Yeah.
summer league, where it was like, I'm going to need to be an explosive finisher around the rim. I'm going to need to show that I can finish through traffic and go up strong. He understood the role he's probably going to be asked to play, and I think that he didn't care how his game looked. He just cared that he could showcase that one area of his game that he's going to be asked to be good at. And I think that him, as you mentioned, Hugo, Josh Minott, I think all of these wings, these 3s and 4s that are developmental, are all going to be asked to be very explosive finishers. You can't ask Garza to do that because that's just not his game. So I am very curious whether they try and find a rim runner or a rim running big between now and February, just because if you start seeing great value with Nemi in that role, maybe you want to continue that in a Pacers way. And it's kind of like a like for like replacement when Nemi goes to the bench, rather than having to chop and change the entire way you're trying to play because Garza can't give you that vertical space in it.
I am not the only person who is a little mystified that Charles Bassey didn't get a chance with the Celtics. He could theoretically still, they could nab him away from the presumable G League destination he's going to have with the Atlanta Hawks. He signed with them on, I think, Exhibit 10. But there are also other players out there that could be signed like that as well. I don't know who off the top of my head, but there's a lot of young, shall we say, unproven bigs floating around. Orlando Robinson is another guy who comes to mind, who might be out there in the ecosystem. Players like that. Those are players I would not mind keeping an eye on. Doesn't seem like they want to add bigs from what I have seen, from what they've been doing, who they've been interviewing, who they've had on in Summer League, other than the ones that they have brought onto the team. But I don't think we're being honest with ourselves if we think that, for example, Neemias Queta, he's going to be, I think, a real potential rotation player in the future. But he could end up a starter. But look, if we're being realistic, it's going to be someone ahead of him at some point, at least in the foreseeable future. It's going to take Nemi years to get up to the level of a starting center if he ever does. So for me, probably externally, the next starting Celtics big man is coming from somewhere off of the roster.
I completely agree. I feel like I've really upset people this summer because I've not been afraid to just share my opinions on who I think is going to do well, who I don't. And Nemi is a guy where I think he's going to surprise us, but I also don't think he's going to cement himself as a key piece of this team. I think that when you're a retooling roster, one of the most important aspects is being willing to move off guys when their value gets to a point where it probably won't peak that high again. And I think that when you look at Nemi, he's actually a potential guy whose value is going to get to a point where the return outweighs what you could get even in the summer or a year later. And if an offer comes in or an offer materializes where you can swap Nemi for a guy along with other pieces, obviously, for a guy that could theoretically become your starting big down the line, then you do that. There's just because like Nemi and Garza and Minor and whoever else outside, I'd actually take Hugo Gonzalez out of this conversation for the moment. But anybody else, I feel like, yeah, they're coming to play and earn a role and prove themselves, but that doesn't mean they're going to be there in February. And if they are, it doesn't mean they're going to be there by the following October. The whole point of this is to develop talent, build their value, and flip them for players that are actually going to stick around. And Brad Stevens has shown that he is not afraid to make trades at all.
There's a chance that Nemi develops his game to the point where he gets to like a Sam Hauser level where he provides enough of certain key skills on the cheap that they will keep him around. But it's more likely that he ends up just being like a decent, somewhere between second and third big. And if you can get a decent asset for more than what you ended up putting out to get him, then, but in this case, it'd be nothing. But I mean, if you can get like a couple of second round picks, them that are not like, fake second round picks, it might be worth exploring that, particularly considering the fact that, again, he's a great story, right? And great stories keep us entertained in seasons like this, but great stories rarely help you win titles.
And that's got to be as Brad Stevens would call it, the North Star, right? Like the whole point of this season is to figure out who is going to be part of that next championship team and who isn't. And that doesn't necessarily mean who has a great season this year. It means who shows that they're going to be ready to have a great season once Tatum's back and the other pieces of the puzzle have started to fall into place. Unfortunately, sometimes that means you could be one of the most impactful dudes on the roster, but find yourself being shipped out because once everybody's back and things fall into place, it gets difficult. We were talking about this on an episode on Wednesday when the Jalen Brown news came out, where it was like he didn't shut down wanting to join the Hawks, but he didn't actually say anything wrong or anything egregious, but it was like a non-newsy piece of news, right? And the one thing I pointed out there, and I think this is just as much true for anyone else in this rotation right now, is the question of whether Brown pushed to leave the Celtics might arise next summer when he's had a taste of leading a team. He's turning 30 or he's getting closer to 31. He's in the back end of his prime, and then he's being asked to step down into a complementary role, a 1A, a 1B role, or a 2, however you view it. If it's a 1A as Tatum, 1B as Brown, or Tatum as your primary, Brown as your secondary, however you want to view it, that could force Brown to be like, hold on, my career is like the best part of my career is coming to an end. Maybe it's time for me to move on. You could apply that to a Neemias who feels like, hey, I had a great season with Boston because they put me in a position. I don't want to move back to being a second option big. I don't want to be that third string. Move me. And if Brad feels like that's going to happen at the end of the year and there's value in the trade market at February, then why wait? Make that trade. I think that's a viable human nature of I don't want to step backwards, right?
I mean, you see what he's doing with the Portuguese national team. It's hard not to want to keep doing something even vaguely like that. And even just like apart from the X's and O's of how he's going to be used being different, he's not going to get that kind of attention, good and bad, at the NBA level. And he seemed to really enjoy it, as he should. He literally made history with the Portuguese national team. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, don't get too used to anybody on this team that is not a starter, honestly, because they're probably not going to be here the season after next, and maybe not next season as well.
And this is all the way through to somebody like Hauser. I think Hauser's name has been criminally floated around this summer in terms of just like a throw-in to a deal. You're talking about one of the best movement shooters in the league, arguably top 3, who's also out of that top 3, the best defender of that bunch. And you're like, yeah, well, you could just throw Hauser in to match money. I think that's a bit criminal. But again, don't expect him to necessarily be part of that rotation in a year, in 18 months' time, as Brad starts to round out. And I think that this is what leads me back to the original question of play style. I think that what we see from the Celtics now is going to be the framework, that the foundations of a new team and the foundations of a new style that Mazzulla believes can take this team to a chip. And we saw that when he came in from MA, when it was very much, right, MA's was very much of a bit more of a grit and grind half-court approach. We're going to grind out offensive possessions. Mazzulla came in, he's like, no, we're going to play very technically sound, very mathematically led basketball, and it won a chip. Now he's going to have to rejig everything. And I think that could mean dudes that have been essential up until this point might not be as essential moving forward because the system might not suit what they do.
I'd also like to add in the fact that this new cap environment is going to have teams shedding surprising players all the time, like up and down the roster, from very expensive players to guys that just don't fit the new vision of the team wherever it happens to be at in its developmental arc. And let's be honest, developmental arcs now are like 3 to 4 years for like a contention arc. So when teams come off of that or decide they just don't have a chance and don't want to spend the kind of money that is going to hit them in the face by having a team like that, those players are going to get sold off with great frequency. And while the teams are going to want to get off of those players, they're also not really going to be over a barrel in the same kind of way, because everyone is going to be dealing with this in the next couple of years, except for the teams that perennially choose not to contend. But since each Chicago Bull, those kinds of teams that are actually trying to continue to contend and recycle their rosters, it's going to require good players coming back. They're not going to be over the barrel in the same kind of a way we saw Danny Ainge in the past, because they're going to be in the same position. They don't want everyone to talk about what they did to the other team and how we're going to get them back kind of stuff, right? They want the same kind of environment for fluid mobility that every team is going to really need, which means players like Sam Hauser or Peyton Pritchard, while they are essential to fielding one of these teams, when you get in one or two more of those kinds of players, when you go back up and Jayson Tatum's healthy and all that stuff, they're going to want some of those players back as well.
And that's kind of what makes this whole new CBA intriguing, in the sense of, did the Players Association and did the team owners all believe that this would be where we got to, in terms of like, at some point we're going to reach a flashpoint where big trades are happening all the time and the rumor mill's churning constantly, and teams, as you said, the whole point of this new CBA was no dynasties, that it was very much driven by, we don't want another Warriors team that just wins it year after year, and people that are casual fans are like, I don't need to watch this season because I know who's going to win. Right. So it's definitely driven that way. And I think that you are right. It's going to be, I keep thinking of a team like the Grizzlies that draft really well, but just never figure out how to put the extra pieces around their draft guys to be a genuine contender. And injuries screwed this iteration of that Grizzlies team. That 2-3 years ago, they were great. They bring in Marcus Smart. He brings an injury bug with him. And that team's just all sorts of messed up now, whether or not they can get back. But there's teams like that out there, that the Jazz being one of them, that have a few guys that are a bit older than the rest of their core, and it makes sense, even no matter how good those older dudes are, to move on from them. And that's why I genuinely believe if the Celtics are going to stick to a similar system to what they have done, Lauri Markkanen is a guy that you should go and get. I think that that's the dude that if you want to replace Kristaps Porziņģis and still play that 5-out pace and space, we're going to create offense off of screens and the fact that everyone 1-5 can shoot, Lauri Markkanen is the guy that you need to go and get. And if you do that, I'm pretty confident that Danny Ainge is going to be like, I want Peyton Pritchard to make
Oh,
the
yeah.
deal.
Absolutely.
Of course he is. But you put your hands up, so I'm assuming that you're a Lowry guy too. And like, we're just
Oh, yeah. Big
sporting
time.
here just based on the youthfulness in Utah right now, the way Lowry played in Europe, and the fact that Lowry is a few years older than the rest of that core. The timeline still fits, but it's a little bit more janky.
Yep.
Plus the fact that Boston need to replace the starter play Porziņģis gave you, if that's how they're going to keep playing, I could see Lowry being a guy they target either this year or next.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. What he's been doing in Eurobasket recently tells me that he's just kind of taking it easy with the Jazz until there's a reason not to. And frankly, considering where they're at and what they're doing, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't, honestly. Like, this season might be the first season to really give any effort on the defensive end, for example, at all. Last season, they were sitting him out probably completely healthy, definitely within range of being playable if it was the postseason. And if we're being honest, probably in the regular season as well. I mean, they did get yelled at for it by the league. I think he can do a lot more than he has done. And even if that's not the player they get, that is the kind of player that if there's going to be another trade, it's not going to be like little tiny incremental improvements to present day. Like, for example, the suggestions that the Celtics might trade for Nikola Vucevic. They're not doing that. That just makes absolutely no sense. He's too old. By the time the Celtics are able to contend, what he does have left in the tank will probably be gone. He's on an expiring contract, so if you trade for him, he may not even stay. It's just like, there are definitely plenty of potential trades out there that would be worth talking about, but like these little, like, people who are trying to make the Celtics better this season are kind of missing what the front office is trying to do.
And I think that, first of all, if you're not subscribed already, go and subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. I dove into the pros and cons of a Vucevic trade the other day. Probably went a little bit too deep. It was like 3,000 words on a trade that's never going to happen. But hey ho. But I agree. I think that there's a lot of Celtics fans out there right now that are still in the belief that this team can contend. And I also think that there's a lot of Celtics fans that that believe that Tatum is going to come back and be like a savior at the end of the year, and they should be ready for when that happens, player personnel wise. Because once Tatum's back, if you've already got this juggernaut of a roster ready to go, then you can just turn it. It's not going to happen. Even if Tatum comes back, like, you need ramp up time. Being medically cleared and being ready to play are very different. Then being ready to play and being at an all NBA level, again, that's like
It's
an
absurd.
ocean. It's ridiculous amounts of like
To say nothing
training.
of like the overall schema and trying to fit him back in, and having like the people on the roster who have not played the Celtic style ever take on it's just completely unrealistic.
It's not going to happen this year. And to me, I'm actually embracing that and trying to see the fun in watching these guys develop and remembering what that was like a few years back and how every win meant something. And let's be honest, like, winning every game is fun, but when you're covering the team and you're watching games 2 or 3 times and you're breaking down all the quotes, it gets a little fucking boring, dude. Like, shit, can you make it interesting for a minute?
We are just writing about it. They're the ones doing it. You have to imagine just like eventually the I hate to say it, but like the boredom of covering a team in the regular season, like, I don't know. It's going to be a big change in a way that, at least for me, selfishly, the games are going to be a lot more interesting because you will see actual things that matter happening, unfolding before your eyes in a way where when you're dealing with a contending level team, and particularly what we saw from Boston the last couple of seasons, there's not going to be much growth in season. Because if that's the case, then you aren't really ready to be a contender because you're not looking for growth. You're looking for consistency.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing they did brilliantly was you knew what you were getting from that Celtics team, especially the championship run, day in and day out. And that's where I'm not saying it's boring that they win, but it's the fact that they were doing it so efficiently that it was like, dude, I don't really even need to watch the game. I can pretty much tell you what plays they ran in each quarter, what subs they made in each quarter, and how the game went. Because it was the same. It was consistent, excellent, like literally consistent excellence. Now we're going to get back to it's scrappy. Oh, this dude 3 months ago wasn't making cuts like this, but now he's figured out that in this system, and hey, my explosiveness allows me to do this and thrive. That means something. And when you're covering the team, that gives you like a month's worth of shit you can dive into and dissect. It's fun. It energizes you. Now for a normal fan that just wants to live or die by the wins, it's going to be rough. I don't think the Patriots are very good this year. I don't keep up with the NFL, but I feel like it's just going to be a tough year for Boston sports. I don't know about the Bruins or the Red Sox. I don't keep up with them. But yeah, don't pin your hopes.
Bruins are rebuilding. I haven't been a hockey fan since the Whalers left Connecticut, but I do listen to my local New England sports brethren, and yeah, it's definitely there's the Celtics might still be the brightest star of New England sports right now.
I'm sorry,
that's not
Boston.
fair.
I'm sorry. What I will say is, though, as we've said, there is going to be a lot of light at the end of the tunnel talk. There's going to be a lot of people looking at incremental developments, incremental value increases, along with potential targets. Lauri Markkanen being a dude I'm trying to manifest right now. But overall, my biggest question outside of the way they play, outside of who could get traded or anything else that we spoke about now, and this kind of leads me on to, it was a Chris Forsberg article that led me to it, and I really want to put you on the spot with it now. Do you think this is a prove it year for Joe Mazzulla?
I mean, it has to be. He's doing an entirely different kind of a job, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he won't be around for the next contention arc, but if it doesn't go great, like if it goes acceptable, but like I don't think it's gonna, like, it would have to go incredibly poorly for his job to be in danger because of this season, what's expected, because most of that is not really going to be his fault. But there is a path, maybe we accelerate the potential arrival of Jalen in Atlanta because things go so badly, like that kind of a scenario. Yeah, sure. Maybe in that kind of a scenario, he would be on the hot seat, but realistically, he could cement himself as some coaches in Celtics history who have been through more than one contention arc. There are lots of Celtics coaches who were only like Bill Fitch is like a Hall of Fame coach, and Larry Bird, even they tuned him out after a while. And this could set the stage for that, like where he is needing to connect with these players in ways where he hasn't before. He could find himself in a situation where he kind of loses the locker room a bit, and maybe that lingers into the next season and the season after that when they are trying to contend, and that ends up being what ends up taking him down. So is he in a prove it sense, like in the sense that he might lose a job this season because of how he performs? No, but he could lay the foundation for his eventual demise as the Celtics head coach for future contention arcs because of what happens this season. So yes and no, depending on what we mean when we say that.
You see, so that is a thought process that I haven't heard or haven't considered in terms of potentially losing the locker room. And I think that we need to explore that a little bit more. So before we do that, the mindset that I've had, and we'll kind of tie these two in, is I've been approaching this as this is the year when Mazzulla can show us that he's Boston's answers to Spoelstra, or he's just another coach. Not another. He's already proven he can win a championship. Now, the difference between being a coach that you hire to win you a chip to get you over the finish line and a coach that's with a team for 10, 15, 20 years, the SPO and pop build, is not many coaches can develop talent, navigate a rebuild, navigate a retool, and be the same coach that wins you a chip. Like, there's such a breadth. That's like saying we need a LeBron level all around guy, right? Or maybe not LeBron, like a Tim Duncan. I don't know. It's a Hall of Fame level all around guy. There's two of them in the NBA right now. One of them, sorry, Pop left last season. There's one of them in the NBA right now. My mentality has been, if Mazzulla thrives here now with this version of the Celtics, he could be the next Spoelstra that's around for 10, 15 years, because you need that range, right? You need to be able to coach at every different, not level, but also every situation. Now, as you said, if he falls short there, which most coaches will, the reason that there's only one coach that done it so much is because it's so hard to be that guy. I'd never considered the fact that could create the blueprint for his demise. And that's a really interesting way of looking at it.
I don't think it's going to happen, to be clear. I think that he has shown us in his rise to his current position that he knows how to talk to players that don't need. So first of all, I tend to divide coaching into developmental, obviously, but then it's also ego management, because you're dealing with mostly formed players who don't need you to tell them how to get better other than, the casual observations of what you've been doing lately, blah, blah, blah. They don't need to completely transform their game, right? In fact, that's why you have them, because their game is mostly complete. So you have to fit them into everyone else. And their opinion clearly matters the most, because if you piss them off, you have nothing, really. That's a very different job than trying to get the set of players who you aren't even sure are going to be in the league, never mind on your team in another year. Not the same. So we have seen Mazzulla do something like this coming up through the Celtics organization. We have seen him be a developmental coach in the past. So theoretically, he should be able to do this job. But until he does it with this level of expectations, like, it's one thing to be a developmental coach for the main Celtics or the Las Vegas Summer League squad, as he did. It's another thing entirely to be doing it for one of the main, I don't know what you want to call it, like keystone franchises in the NBA.
A year after raising the banner into the rafters, because this might be the second season where since the Celtics won, but we're talking like
a year.
It's a year, because the banner got raised just after, I think it was opening night against the Knicks. So we're coming up to the year mark where the banner was actually raised, and the change in expectations might be very, very clear and apparent, but that doesn't mean Celtics fans are going to be okay with the fact that it's going to be a potentially losing season. And you not only do you have to navigate the talent or the lack of talent and the development, you also have to navigate the media, because Joe's always been like, he was quite prickly with them to begin with. Then he softened up a little bit. Now it's going to be really interesting to see, because the media always holds the keys to public perception. And I think that the last thing he can do is lean too far into his defensive nature and then like basically alienate the media while it. There's a lot of pitfalls that he needs to navigate, but I think that he's proven himself to be a very, very high level coach. And this could be the difference now this season or the next two. Like, there's no guarantee that this season is the only retooling season. Just because Tatum comes back doesn't instantly mean you're a contender. So he's got a good stretch.
That is an important point you just made that I don't think a lot of people like. And I was on Yossi Goslin's podcast for the Third Apron talking about what we thought might happen with the Celtics financially moving forward. And even when we were talking about it, was like, well, they're not going to like get out of the tax entirely, because that would mean not contending for 2 straight seasons. But everything we have seen so far strongly suggests that that is something they would like to do, even if they can't necessarily. It seems to be on the agenda. I would not be entirely blown away, for example, if they don't trade Anthony Simons because they don't get something back that they like enough that will get them under the tax, and then he just leaves and that all disappears, right? And they are way under the tax at that point. They still have the trade exception from like Kristaps Porziņģis to build the team back up again and stuff and such like that. They have tools to re-add to the cap without necessarily signing internal guys to bigger contracts, but all signs point to an aggressive move to get as close to under the tax as possible, and if possible, under the tax. Now, if that gets us an extra year or two of the Jays trying to contend together, or at least a contending team with one of the Jays, presumably, for titles, I'll take it, because there's a very good argument that they will not be ready, even if Jayson Tatum comes back this season, that he will not be fully confident and in control of his body in the same kind of a way that he would be another season after that, as we tend to see with people who undergo these kinds of really extreme injuries.
I think that when he first went down injured and the conversation was about when the Celtics could contend, I genuinely believe it was more widely accepted that it would be 27-28 when the Celtics would be contending again. So not this season, not next season, but the year after. I felt like that was a very widely accepted timeline. And then as the summers progressed, that timeline shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And then it went from 27-28 to 26-27. Then from 26-27 to by the end of this year, they're going to be back in it. It could be 2 years. And this is why when I spoke earlier about Jalen Brown stepping down back into a 1B or a 2 role, that he might be like, hey, I'm at the end of my prime. Because if it's 2 years, if it's 27-28, Brown's going to be bordering on 32, 33. And that then becomes a different level of conversation. If I just pull up Spot Track right now, Jaylen Brown Spot Track, not only will he be at that age, 27-28.
Still, I believe, yeah.
He'll be on a boatload of money. So 27-28, Jaylen Brown will be 31 at the start of the season. He will turn 32 during the season. He will be earning $61 million. Now, that's a lot of bread. And there's a chance that the Celtics might be like, hey, this dude's 31, 30, coming on 32. We're getting close to contending, but if we flip him now, we might get the pieces back. There's these different scenarios where it's like, yes, the Celtics will try and contend, but in my head, the whole system is built around retooling around Jayson Tatum. And whatever comes from that. And if that takes 2 years, and now we have to have a discussion about a 31, 32-year-old Jaylen Brown, whose athleticism is a huge part of his ability to get downhill and do what he does, earning $60 million. That conversation is going to happen. If they're not a contending team coming into that season and their aim is to be one by the end of it, that conversation is going to be really uncomfortable.
Also keep in mind that there are other reasons not to necessarily hurry or rush back to contention, because the entire rest of the league is also dealing with the second apron issues. And as things stand now, it's going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder's league for at least another season, like beyond this one. And then they're going to start feeling the first hard decisions at that point, I think, about the depth that they currently have. So they will start to get thin. They will have a lot of tools to make sure they can stay under the cap and avoid the harsher penalties and maybe, give Silver and the rest of the league a middle finger about that whole no dynasties idea. But they will still need to sacrifice talent and bring in younger, less good talent, less proven talent behind them. Let's not even about Wemby. There's reasons to slow walk a return to contention to be completely ready. And it might take a little bit longer than we would like.
But if it ends in a chip, everybody will forgive the path that it took to get there. We've got to remember how difficult and uphill and treacherous it was for the Celtics to get to where they were in 2024. And how it took making some trades that nobody was happy with them losing Marcus Smart. I remember people going crazy, like Kristaps Porziņģis was a mistake. He's always injured. I remember having to pull up his injury absences versus Smart's injury absences over a 5-year period to prove that, both are about as available as each other. But it played out well. And I feel like there's going to be moves that people absolutely hate. There's going to be new fan favorites. Again, I'm calling it, I think Josh Minott is going to end up being a fan favorite in Boston.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be some new fan favorites and they're going to get moved at some point and it's going to piss some people off. And there's a chance, slim as it may be, that Jalen Brown will be one of those guys if they're not contending in the next 18 months.
Sidebar for your listeners. If you'd like to hear some really good reggae music with a Celtics connection, Josh Minott's uncle Sugar Minott, amazing, famous, very well-known roots reggae singer. Check him out.
With that being said, I want to leave it there. So, Justin, before we go, first of all, you need to tell these people you are a real doctor, not that type, but you are a real doctor.
Anthropology.
It's still
very useful in the medical field.
I mean, dude, we both wrote for a living. With that being said, you've got your own show and it's doing really well and it's got a really cool name. So I think everybody should know where to find that.
Havlicek Stole the Pod. Anywhere you are catching this, you should be able to find it. You can also catch it on Celtics Wire, where you can find both of our work.
And with that, I'm going to let everybody bounce. Everyone have a good one. Let us know in the comments, who would you trade? Do you think there should be a trade? Are you expecting Tatum back? Do you think we're just talking out our ass? And obviously, was the opening a little bit too in your face? I'm a little bit curious. Right then, everybody. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.